Hello, hello. This is made possible by Pop Culture, the podcast, and I'm your host and producer, Danielle Terciano. If you've been following along for a little bit, you know I have something of a specialty in television, and today's guest has been doing some of the best dramatic work in that medium for years, in my maybe not so humble opinion. I first saw him in The Shy a little more than 7 years ago, and I have followed his career ever since. Right now, he's on three very different dramas, playing three very different characters. He's on Washington Black, Smoke, and Dexter Resurrection. If you don't know yet, you will know now. I'm talking about Ntare Guma Mbaho Mwine. Ntare, thank you for coming on Made Possible by Pop Culture and chatting with me today.
I'm just so excited to dive in. I You took me down memory lane, so I'm grateful to a chance to chat.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you. I'm grateful that you wanted to come on this podcast and do this.
Yeah.
I will say that starting this, I normally do like to start in the past and talk about your pop culture
Yeah.
influence from the past. I am going to start that way here today. I know the Dexter fans out there are mad about that because they just want to get to Dexter. We will get to Dexter, I promise.
Well,
Uh,
there might be some revelations in the discussion
I
that
was just thinking that
yeah,
because so I want you to set up, what it was that you chose and the why of it, the like when you found it and
yeah.
what it was that you attached to. But as this was brought to me pre-interview, pre-podcast, I saw connections and I was like, I'm sure there was no intentionality. Uh, and yet, I think it'll make an interesting discussion. So you go ahead and start with past pop culture reference. Tell us what it is and when you first fell in love with it.
Hi, my name's Ntare Guma Mbaho Mwine. I'm thrilled to be here with you to discuss my pop culture select, which is going to be something probably no one in, I'm too old, I'm aging myself, has seen, which was a TV show from the 1970s called The Incredible Hulk, um, which I think was the first iteration of the Hulk in terms of being on screen. There's been so many versions of The Incredible Hulk on small screen, on the big screen, but I believe the 1977 TV series, The Incredible Hulk, was the first and foremost and set the stage for epic superhero stories told from
Well,
the every man's point of view.
I was going to say the foremost, I think, is also because it was your formative experience. I think there will be people who didn't see it, and it isn't streaming now. It is available to rent or to buy, but it is harder, I think, for people who are fans of it, having seen, Mark Ruffalo do it, to find it. But what was it when well, first of all, set us scene a little bit about like little Natari. Like what was it about little Natari that found this show and said, I maybe relate to something, or I'm intrigued by something, or I'm just wowed. What was that like?
Uh, it was, I think, one of the first or the one of the few or only family shows. Like we would get together on whatever night it was, and me and my mom and my siblings would sit and watch the show together. Um, there was also other shows, I think, uh, should I mention them or not?
No, totally, yeah.
$6 Million Man. Uh, um, there was Star Trek. There was something about B.J. McKay and his best friend Bear. Something like I don't. That probably wasn't the title, but those are the characters. Um, there was um, what was the one where the guys drove around in a car with a Confederate flag painted on the top?
Oh, Dukes of Hazzard?
Dukes of Hazzard.
Okay. I was like, the Confederate flag got me for a second, but then I was like, oh, yes, that's
Yes.
the one thing I remember from that show. Yikes.
So yeah, those are the shows like we watch, but something about the Incredible Hulk like got me. Um, and just like the opening sequence of the show freaked me the bleep out.
Okay, so that's what I'm finding very fascinating, right? Because you're young when you're watching this. You just described it as like a family experience where you could watch it with your family, but there are probably things in it that are more violent than your family wants you to maybe see at that age. Because it is, I mean, it is tragic in the beginning. I mean, he loses his wife, he's unable to do anything about it. He performs all these experiments on himself, and that's how he becomes the Hulk.
Yeah.
And then obviously, when he becomes the Hulk, he's hulking out and being violent. And in a way, like this is where I was saying there's a parallel. Like he's a little bit like Dexter because week to week he does try to do good things with this new capability. He's not using this for necessarily nefarious or evil purposes, although there are mishaps along the way.
Yeah.
So when you said it freaked you out, I want to go back to what it was that freaked you out and what it was that made you push through it and say like, I'm bothered a little bit, but I'm still interested to keep going.
I could never watch the opening sequence, like the title sequence.
Oh, okay.
Just the title sequence, because in the title sequence, for the folks who haven't seen it, Bill Bixby is there. He's looking down at a grave and he looks up. When he looks up, half of his face turns into the Incredible Hulk, and his other half of his face is normal. That used to freak me out. I was like, how is that? It's terrified me. Like I never could watch that opening title sequence. So when I got the DVD set, I was like, am I going to be scared again when I watch the title sequence? Because there's this dramatic music, there's a whole setup. And I watched it with my kids who were 6 and 8 just to get to see like what their reaction was. And they weren't bothered like the bit.
I mean, I feel like at this point they've seen worse,
Yeah.
maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe not graphic, but just the effects are so different. That's also why I love revisiting this stuff in this format because your memory of what freaked you out when you were young, I think also has a lot to do with like, well, you had maybe never seen anything like that before. But then,
Exactly.
if you had seen it for the first time today,
You'd be laughing because
impactful,
I've
but not
watched some of the
scary.
stuff now, and I'm like, oh my God, that's like a teddy bear they threw across the room to
Right.
simulate like a bear being thrown, like that the Hulk was throwing a bear. There's an episode where the Hulk lands a jet plane. There's like all these different episodes that are so absurd that they're just laughable. But as a kid, you're watching it going like, I mean, my son and my both of my kids were like, for still saying this from last week, are like, don't make me angry. You wouldn't like me when I'm angry. It's like,
Yeah. I mean, there's iconic pieces of it certainly for a reason. And I think the fact that it's withstood time in the sense of like they're going to remake it over and over again because the elements are there. Like the pieces of the story, the characters are so classic. What I think is so interesting about the show version versus the films we've seen is that road trip element to it is like the every week. I mean, he's kind of on the run, which is sad, but also like every week he's in this new environment and he's dealing with some new problem, some new thing while he's being chased, but he's not being chased really by law enforcement as the focus. At least in what I remember, I mean, the main focus in my memory is reporter.
yeah.
This guy who like outed him as the Incredible Hulk and now is trying to get to the story, which is not something we really see or I've seen. And I found that really fascinating. And I'm wondering how, when you're younger and you're watching this for the first time, or maybe, on reruns multiple times, how much of those pieces of the story are you paying attention to the tragedy of it and the, on the run part of it versus just that the things you mentioned a minute ago, like the cool, stunty teddy bear flying, plane landing, like literal stunts in a way.
I mean, it taps into this sort of existential threat where I mean, he is a fugitive, not from the law, but from almost himself. Like he's trying
Mhm.
to get away from some part of himself, and he's a lot of the journeys take him. Some of the episodes are taking him to other scientists who have some research in gamma ray, whatever, and if he could just tap into their work and do some experiments, maybe he could get rid of this Incredible Hulk that lurks within him. Um, so I mean, it ends like there's a longing element for this guy to like somehow find peace and belonging. And it's just an incredible, it ends with him like walking off every episode, almost every episode is he's like hitchhiking to go someplace else and trying to find someplace new to settle and rediscover himself or settle in. And each episode is each in its own story because he yeah, I think there may be a couple of there that continue. Um,
Yeah, but it
um,
was, I mean, it was very of the week format, which especially at the time was how you did it, how you got people to tune in week to week, see
mhm.
where you would go next, but you're wrapping up the weekly story. But hearing you talk about the longing, it strikes me, I don't know if this is something that you even thought of when you were younger, but the aspect of him trying to find the cure. Is that something that back then when you were watching it, you were rooting for? Or did you want him to actually find like acceptance and in his new version of himself and realize the power in his new version of himself?
I think it was probably a bit of both, but another show I just thought of Gilligan's Island we used
Mm.
to watch. I mean, I mean, they could never get off the island. Like that'd be the end of the show.
I'm not saying it was going to happen. But I feel like, sometimes you watch the show with the ultimate goal in mind is something that maybe the character has to learn isn't what's best for them. Like show politics aside, business of the industry aside, like he's become something different, but if he uses it for good, he doesn't have to be ashamed of this new thing that's inside of him.
Yeah, I think there's the key thing I think that struck my kids when they saw it. They didn't watch that pilot episode that I told you about because it was too violent. That
Oh.
I saw that opening.
Was that your
That was
decision?
my choice because my daughter would freak the hell out. She would just, there's no way she would be. She was already scared from some of the other, like the later episode I showed
Mhm.
her. But my son was totally into it. But yeah, the first episode is it's very tragic in terms of the whole setup and the car crash. But what's at core, which he's trying to research in the very first episode, is this secret, this dormant power that lies within all of us. That when under duress or stress or something, that we all have this superpower within us. And so they're doing research, setting it up for folks who haven't seen the show or not familiar. Bill Bixby, is that the actor or the character?
That's the actor.
David Banner, sorry. Dr. David Banner is doing research on people who have been in like accidents or situations where they've been under duress and then under this duress displayed superhuman strength. A mom who had a car accident and her son was caught trapped in the fire into the car, and she single-handedly lifts the car up and flips it over. Uh, like all of these guys, there's another guy who's like a Vietnam vet. He managed to like
Mm.
save his friend who was in combat. He's researching all these people who somehow displayed superhuman strength and harnessed it in a way that was helpful in that situation. So he's trying to find a way to make this, you know, work for the better of humankind, for the better of, and accidentally backfires in his experimentation, and it goes completely haywire, and the Incredible Hulk is born. So the tragedy is that he can't really control it. Like it comes up at inopportune times when he's upset, but always to the rescue.
Right.
Um,
And
so I
that's,
think,
you used the word a second ago, stress or under duress. And I mean, that is definitely what they've set up. I always also used to think it always is strong. I will say I haven't seen every single episode of the show, partially because it's not available to stream, so it was hard to find. But I always thought there was a little bit of anger in there too. Like it's
yeah,
your natural anger that is helping this come out, which I thought was really interesting because I always thought like if tapped into properly that is an emotion that can be very productive
yeah.
if you know how to use it, which I thought this show was doing in a way that I don't think most shows would do.
Mhm.
I don't know if you agree with that or if you feel like anger is not the main thing that you were noticing.
No, that the tagline is "Don't make me angry."
Well, sure. But I
Wouldn't
meant
like
I meant
me.
noticing when you were watching, like as you would watch the scenes, especially as the actors would switch and they would maybe play things slightly differently because all of a sudden, like Bill Bixby as Bruce Banner is not being asked to do what Lou Ferrigno as the Hulk is being asked to do in terms of mannerisms, facial expressions, physicality.
Yeah. I no, I think that was the key really is how to harness your anger in a productive way. And he gave birth to this beast that will just crush anything in a state of anger rather than finding other ways to sort of deal with it. But that was so fun to watch as a kid. Is like, yeah, don't make me angry. You wouldn't like me angry, and then he would like me when I'm angry, and then he just like breaks everything down and destroys everything and like brute force to reconcile any problems. And as a kid, that's just fun, so fun to watch. My son literally is like, "Don't make me angry, Dad. You wouldn't like me when I'm angry." It's
Well,
like,
that's what's so interesting about this because it's fun to watch. I'm sure when you were a kid, maybe it was fun to act out the way that your son is doing, but I'm sure nobody around you, the way maybe you now don't want your son to do that, wanted you to be as physical as this character was. I'm wondering how, if at all, you had to kind of tamper how you mimicked the character because, in the world, you can't go around smashing things.
yeah,
Like I'm wondering I guess if the show, like, oh, if there was a lesson in the show that you almost had to unlearn because you can't be the Hulk in the real world.
I couldn't really be the Hulk in the real world, but I just felt like, you know, when push comes to shove, that there might be something that you have within you that's going to help you get across the finish line. And so, like, if you're playing sports, as a kid. You just think back on that and like run that ball a little harder or just do that ski slope. Or, when I was racing as a kid skiing, you just feel like there's this thing within you that's going to help you get what you need to get done if you can just tap into it. And it's not about rage or whatever. It's just about, digging deep and finding that untapped reserve, which I think is ultimately what Dr. Banner was trying to find and harness, but it went awry.
Right.
Yeah, research.
Did you find yourself going back and kind of rewatching any favorite episodes, favorite moments? Did you feel like as a kid there were specific pieces of the show that you were more interested in than others? Or were you the kind of kid that was like, I'm just watching it every week when it's on, like I just like to see how the story progresses?
I mean, this is like over 40 plus years ago.
Right.
I don't remember the episodes. Like, I literally, when we got this opportunity to chat and this came up, like, I literally bought the DVD set and watched it for the first time, like in
In a long
40,
time.
40 plus years. And I couldn't wait. I was like, I can't wait to see like if this is any good, like how it holds up over
Yeah.
time. Um, and it made me think of like, you know, like what's so great about like stuff that's on TikTok or YouTube that people are posting themselves. It's really simple storytelling,
Yeah.
like to the core. It doesn't matter how cheesy it executed it was, because it had heart.
But the thing is, I don't think it was cheesy at the time, right? Like those are the best effects they could do at the time.
But
We're
I do
like
think,
looking at it through like our lens, and you're looking at it through like, well, I've worked on some really great shows with big FX budgets, so
no, but I do
so
think as a kid, we would buy it. I think as if an adult were watching this show, they'd be like, it's like there's literally a scene where he's wrestling with a bear. And he like, I think it might be the second episode or the third episode, and he's wrestling with a bear in this water, and he throws the bear, and there's a shot of literally like a teddy bear flying through
Mhm.
the sky. It's so clear that it's a doll.
Yeah.
And even in the pilot episode, there's a shot where the Hulk jumps from a window
Yeah,
down, and you could see the stunt person is like not Lou Ferrigno, it's
right.
somebody else. And it's like so poorly done. So I think any adult watching the show would be like, oh, this is laughable. Some of the stuff, not all of it, but
Sure.
what the core was, it tapped into this universal theme of like there's this untapped reservoir in all of us that if we could just harness would give us these superhuman abilities. That's just a simple through line theme that anyone in the world can relate to. And that's what made it so huge. Yeah.
Yeah. Honestly, I mean, that is also, that, I think maybe an easy segue into Dexter a little bit, because again, as much as he is doing some very violent things that nobody is saying people should go out and do, he is tapping into something for years that a lot of us wish we could do, is bring down the bad guy. And in this new iteration, for everybody who hasn't seen it, we want to be very clear. Your character thus far is not the bad guy. There's a lot of speculation online, and the fans who are listening are probably like yelling at me right now, being like, "You don't know that." And it's true, I don't know that. We are taping this middle of August. There's still some time to go in the season. But there is, I think, such a power in watching Dexter be able to do that. And there's also, I think, for so many people, it was cathartic to be able to watch like these, especially this season, the people that are being brought down are really bad. There's Harrison takes out a serial rapist, really. And then there's the serial killer dinner that Dexter is targeting people one by one. And then there's your character whose name is Blessing, who implies he is the light in Dexter's world. When you get a character like that on the page, how much do they tell you whether that is true or not? Like, yes, he is the light all the way through, or hold on, there may be some things coming that you may be interested in. There may be layers to him. Let's start
Uh,
there.
I got the first season, the whole, when I first got the job, I think I only got the first one or two episodes.
Okay.
And I had just come from this other show, Smoke, where I had got the whole season's episodes. And so when I got the whole season of the show for Smoke, I was able to carve out like map beginning to end. This is the arc I think I want to take. I want to try to lose 40 pounds between this and this because I know this is what's happening in the course of this show. But for
Wait, you lost 40 pounds for Smoke, not for Dexter.
right.
Okay. Just checking.
So,
Because I was like, you did look very different in Smoke. And we would definitely be talking about that.
so for Dexter, when I got the first couple episodes, I was like, oh man, I might not have the luxury of knowing what's going to happen next. Like, I might not be able to have that luxury to plan out like what could change physically or what could I do. But then once we got on set, I think I got like all episodes. And then I was like, oh wow, episode 6. That's that's some stuff.
So
Um,
that I think is really why I was asking you, because going from a show like Smoke first, where you know the arc and certainly you know the just how like deep you're going to get with this character, of the psychology of him, why he's doing it, his past, even what you're being asked to do on screen is so emotional. And then to only get 2 episodes of Dexter where he does seem simpler, I would argue, than that previous character. What is it that makes you want to go in such a big swing from one to the other, not knowing where that character is going to go?
well, first Clyde Phillips, Scott Reynolds, Dexter universe. I mean, this would be anyone's dream to be a
Okay.
part of this like freight train that's been running strong for 2 decades. Like they could have given me no episodes and I would have been like, I'm in. Like so it was a gift when I got on set and was able to see what the first season entailed. And yeah, I mean, this show is one that's loved people love because of the surprises and they know something's going to go down with everybody on set, especially those close to Dexter.
Mhm.
So uh, it's definitely keeps people on the edge of their seats. It definitely kept me on the edge of my seat. Like when I get a new script, or I was like, what's going to happen? Am I going to survive another episode? I don't know what's going to. So I think that's what's so thrilling about the show because anyone can go down at any time. Yeah.
Did you believe he was I keep calling him the nicest guy in New York City because like he picks up Dexter in his ride share. Like this is just a passenger, but it's a passenger at a time where there's murders happening, that there is a passenger who they're calling the dark passenger killing rideshare drivers. And yet, Blessing is so nice to him, invites him back to his house for a party, ends up becoming his landlord, like saying, "Yes, please live in my spare space." I am from New York originally, and I cannot imagine anyone ever doing that. So I immediately, in my cynical brain, said there must be more to this guy. Like maybe I know this is floating around out there, and I'm not asking you if it's true, but like maybe he's that elusive ripper that everyone keeps talking about, but we don't really know what's going on with. And I'm not asking you if that's true, but I am curious if when you were reading those first two episodes, you were like fully believing who he was.
To think about right now, like what we're facing right now is like a lot of the folks who have been the most welcoming and inviting people into their homes or into their lives or open doors are those on the sort of lower rung
Hmm.
economic scale, those who are immigrants,
Yeah,
those who come from hardships. And when they see someone who's in need, they are not the first to turn their backs on those people. They, having gone through what they've gone through, know that everyone could use a helping hand. And when Blessing first meets Dexter, he doesn't take him in right away. He doesn't even open the door for him to get in the
that's
car.
true.
He's like, "What's your name?" He cross checks it with the ride that
Right.
popped up, make sure that Dexter is who he is, and then he lets him in.
Mhm.
And he still sort of questions him, saying, trying to feel him out. Um, so there is a bit of caution. He doesn't take him into his home
No,
right
I
away.
did not mean to imply he was, naive,
Yeah, yeah,
but he does end up going out of his way for this person that he barely knows.
right. I think he feels a kinship towards him because he sees somebody who's alone and has no resources or people, like seems like a fish out of water almost.
Yeah.
Uh, when Blessing helps him get to his car that's impounded, he's like, "What the heck is
Yeah.
that?" It's like you're driving in a tank. It's like, my friend, we got to hook you up with something. You can't drive around in that. So he's just looking out for him, like as a friend. And they like the closer they get, the more opportunities he opens for him. He invites him to a party. At the party, he reveals that he doesn't have a place to stay, and then he's like, "Oh, well, we have a spare room." He's like impulse, you know, on the spot thinking and throwing out things. So it's sort of something that evolves. There is some stuff that I think is coming up that I think is going to surprise folks even more about like his capabilities,
Well, I was
his
going to say we did get to know him a little bit better in episode 6, where
yeah.
he reveals a little bit of his past to Dexter, and he says like I have killed someone. And when you said he recognized something in Dexter early in their meeting, I want to go back to that because like in episode 6, it almost felt to me like you're revealing this story. Are you feeling him out? Are you trying to see if he's got that kind of darkness in him? And when you're playing those scenes, how far could you go in terms of leaning into something like that to tip the audience to what might come next?
Well, I think I think Blessing knows the smell of blood.
I was gonna say he's, I mean, in there futzing with the shower curtain and there's a dead guy in the tub.
I'm
And I'm
sure
like,
there was
there's
a
no
lot of
way.
blood in that. There was a lot of blood in that bathtub. That's all I'm saying. So I'm sure he was like, "That's oh yeah, I know that smell. I don't
Okay,
know. I
I
have no
appreciate you
idea.
saying that because there have been a few things in the show this season. I'm loving the season, but there have been a few things that have felt too easy for Dexter, especially being the fish out of water in New York in a new environment. And that was one of them. So I'm glad that you're acknowledging that no, he knows something's up.
I
Okay.
don't know that he knows something up. I'm just saying subconsciously, like maybe that's, I'm saying that bathroom did not smell like a bathroom,
Sure.
right? Can we, I think
How could it?
we can all agree on that.
I think so. I mean, honestly, I am fascinated by the fact that he was able to kill somebody while I don't want to say
Right.
party, the wake was going on upstairs because, yeah, it's loud. We hear the music, we hear people talking, but it can't be that loud. That, he's going to be sawing a body into pieces. That feels like there's more room for being found out than usual.
Well, I think that's part of what makes the show so fun. I mean, everyone freaks out as soon as Dexter's about to get caught. Like that's some of the favorite moments for the audience. It's like, is he gonna get? It's like Gilligan's Island. Are they about to get off? Like it's the same. It's the same old hook, and it works every time because we just love it. We
It's
want to see how close can we get to like being caught. And like that's the secret juice of the show.
Did that scene where you're revealing things about Blessing's past, did that change the way you were thinking about your character? Because you didn't know it from the beginning? Like, what does getting a reveal like that so late in a season do for you as an actor?
I didn't get it late in the season. I just didn't get the scripts all up front when I got the job. But when I
Right.
was on set, when we started
Oh, like
filming,
right away on set.
or I don't know if when I got to New York, I had all the scripts.
Okay.
So before we began filming, I knew the arc for season one, and I knew episode six was uh, one of the, I'll say one of
Yeah.
the reveals. And I remember just shooting with Reese, the woman who plays my daughter, and she
Mhm.
didn't have the full season of scripts.
Mhm.
So I think when you're a guest star, they just give you the script you're shooting, that episode you're shooting. They don't give you the next one until you're about to shoot. And so she's like, we're just chatting, like, I don't remember how it came up. Um, but I found out that she didn't have all the scripts. And I was like, oh, so you don't know what's coming. She's like, no. And I was like,
Hmm.
oh, I said, do you want me to? She goes, I go, actually, the daughter doesn't know. So, yeah, maybe I shouldn't tell you because you don't know what's really going on with my character until, I don't know. You don't know what's going on with him.
Hmm.
So maybe it's best you don't know. No. So I kept her, she didn't want to know about the episode six reveal. I didn't tell her. And stuff gets more complicated as the season unfolds, as you'll see. Um, but yeah, that was interesting for her to not want to know.
Right. I keep kind of harping on the like, what if there's bigger darkness? Is that even something you want in a character like this, especially coming off of a character like the one you played in Smoke?
I just want to play the most interesting characters possible. I'm not interested in cookie cutter clean, sanitized, uh, made for TV, you know, easily digestible stuff. I would love to do complex, turn your stomach, uh, head banging, uh, stomach churning.
That is a very good way to talk about Freddie. I wasn't going to segue directly into Freddie from Smoke just yet, but that is a good way, I think, to describe him because this Smoke was not a show that made you wonder who was doing it. They told you right away, he's an arsonist. He's set, you don't necessarily know why right away, but they did tell, like, they let us follow you and your character in those moments of setting the fires, seeing what would happen, and then following the life around it, which I appreciated that we got to see who he was in his daily life and like what this outlet, I will say, was giving him as a fire starter. With a show like that, you said you had the whole arc up front, and you said you dropped a lot of weight for it. I'm assuming you also like that was your actual hair that you then shaved on. No, it wasn't.
I don't have any hair.
I thought you grew hair for the role and then shaved it on
Beard. I
camera.
grew my beard out, but that was Deb Weed, who's head of the hair department. Their incredible work. Her and Lala, were magicians that transferred this bald cap of mine to three different looks: the Fortune 500 look, the unruly afro, the bald hair with nicks and misshaven bits. They did magical wonders. Yeah.
Okay, well, because part of what I was going, where my question was going was, the physical transformation, how much of that is a draw when you see a role like that to get to really lose yourself in a role? Because I have a lot of friends who have seen you in a lot of things and almost didn't recognize you when they first saw Smoke. They were like, we know like we've seen his name in the credits, but looking at you, especially in that first episode, we're shocked.
Yeah. That's so fun, right? It's so good as an actor. Just that's the greatest uh, dream is to be able to get lost in something that people don't recognize you. And that's why I'm so grateful we're chatting to help people know
I know it's you.
that happens in these two
No,
shows.
I say that and I'm like, I wish, I'm glad we're doing this now because these shows are fresh in people's minds, but also like, I kind of wish this was next year when it's Emmy eligible and we're doing it for Emmys because I just did an Emmy FYC episode for this Emmy season. And I'm like, you have so much for next year. Like, I'm already thinking about next year and like, fingers crossed. But anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Your mouth to God's ears. I'm just grateful for the response. You'd never guess that, you never know. I've been on shows where things have all sorts of buzz during production and then nothing kind of happens once they land. I've been on, so we know who, the future can only tell us what will happen with this, but I'm so grateful for the response. But it's in part because Dennis Lehane, uh, the writer showrunner of the show, paints the most dramatic pictures, the most twisted minds known to mankind, from Shutter Island to, like that. Every show, like Blackbird, he just gets into the minds of these people who are living in such extreme states and brings us into their heart, you know? That is a unique voice. And I'm just so grateful to be able to give voice to to Dennis Lehane's words, because it's such a rare, I've been in this business for over 30 years. This is the first opportunity I've had like this to breathe life into a character like this.
There were two scenes. I mean, listen, the whole show, all episodes of Smoke, I think, are very intense. But there were two specific scenes of yours that I found very intense for very different reasons. And I'm wondering if I talk about both of them with you, if you could talk a little bit about getting into the mindset to perform them,
Yeah.
which of them is more intense, and then which of them is more rewarding. Because the first one is the scene where you're going to set fire with Adina Porter in the house, and it's already emotional because they have a relationship, and it's already emotional also because we've seen the character Freddie, go through so much of the rejection. We know about his childhood at that point. We also know we've seen he tried to be a manager at this restaurant, this fast food joint, and like they basically laughed him out of it. And then he finds out by the way, I think the worst way you can find out you didn't get the job. A lot of places will ghost you and not tell you, but he shows up to work and there's just somebody in that job that he was hoping to get. And that is the worst.
Yeah.
Anyway, so there's that scene that I found very intense for the emotion that leads into, but then also the physicality of you're pouring the gasoline, and Taryn is about to run in and he has a gun and everybody knows if you shoot a bullet with gasoline, something is going to ignite. And when you pull out the lighter, he sprays you in the face with the fire extinguisher, which I was like, oh, that must have been a terrible day on set for you. So there's that one. But then there's the follow-up with in the interrogation room, where it's just two guys in the room, you and Taryn, and just the intensity of like kind of seeing each other because they're both fire starters in different ways. But also just the way your Freddie can see through him. And I think that was something that the audience maybe wasn't expecting. The audience couldn't fully see through him at that point. So just to back up, because I just talked for a really long time, my original question really is just which for
Yeah.
you is the more intense and also the more rewarding, if they are same, if they are different. How does that all work in your mind as an actor?
Those both scenes were so like operatic almost in scale, Shakespearean in terms of the extremes of like the first scene being a double suicide, like a suicide pact. He's
Hmm.
like, I'm going to kill both of us. I'm going to set us both in flames so we can both get to heaven. Um, that's how like deranged he is. And what some people might not have caught is when he walks in, he doesn't see Adina Porter's character as her character. He
Mm.
sees her as his foster mom from his childhood. He looks at her, he's talking to her as if she's his foster mom as a kid, when he was a kid. Um, and there's some lines in the scene that were cut, which
Oh,
just
I
delve
was say there is a
further.
line in there where he addresses her as the mother.
Yeah. But there are further lines in the scene that were cut that just heighten the state of uh, the disconnect. And I think it was just really a further uh, plunge down the rabbit hole into his psyche that might have been too far like for the audiences. So that those it was interesting. Like when I was doing the scene, I was like, this scene is so out there. Like
It's
it's so
interesting
out
too
there. Like
that that might be what someone thought was too far. We're watching people burn. Like we're watching two different characters set very different fires, and I wouldn't imagine that the psychology would be too much. I would think, oh no, watching something burn would be too much.
yeah. Well, yeah, it was just some of the lines that were the actual words that Freddie said were cut, um, which just went towards further illuminating how deranged he was. Um, but yeah, the
Do you remember any of them? Do you want to tell us one of them?
it was something about his mom, about his foster mom. Um, just describing a bit about the house and some of the other people who lived in the house. I think that might have been, you'll probably only need to say something about the foster mom and not have to get into the other details. It described a bit about the what the house looked like, I believe. Um, but that was a house he burned down as a kid.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, and funny enough, when we shot the stuff with a fire extinguisher, there was some sort of malfunction with the fire extinguisher. And it just didn't come out the way they wanted it to while we were filming. So most of that stuff was done with visual effects
Okay.
production.
I
Like,
was actually going to assume that it was maybe a fake fire extinguisher and that they were using something other than whatever that foam is, because that can't be good for your skin. So I thought maybe they rigged something that was
yeah,
more shaving cream or whipped cream or
they did rig
okay.
something, but for whatever reason, when it came time to shoot that, it just came out like a fizzle and not the way it looks in the show. And so they literally had to do like a body scan and recreate. I don't know how they did it, but digitally, all that stuff that sprayed on me, most of that was done in post-production. I didn't get doused nearly like what showed up on screen when we were filming.
Well,
Yeah.
oddly, I feel better for you then because it was a lot. Like again, you're almost unrecognizable. It's just like standing there in shock, and we're all just like, "Oh, that is gross.
No, well,
So bad for this arsonist now."
I think it was grosser for other elements. I mean, being down on your knees with Dave Goodson like aroused like with the fire extinguisher towering over you
That's fair.
was more more
Yeah.
discomforting.
And then when you're sitting across from each other in that interrogation scene, and it is, I would argue, kind of a quieter scene because it's just two people talking. What is that vibe like on set? Are you the kind of actor who I'm going to separate myself and like practice my lines over here and then just do it raw with Taryn, or did you guys actually work that out together? Like the reaction, like the level of reaction before they call action when he's starting to see him and his mother issues and all of that.
No, we never talked like um between takes or before the shoot. Uh yeah, we were just like went to our separate corners. Nothing against, I mean, Taron's an amazing, he's a beast of an actor, uh, the most lovable guy. But it was a really intense scene. So I don't think either of us were like, so what are you doing later for lunch?
Right.
Or
Oh no, I didn't even mean that. I just meant how much you maybe practiced it to
didn't
get to
practice
the
any,
right tone before you just went in and did it on camera.
you didn't practice, we didn't practice anything or talk about the scene at all. And I think one of the things that I might have done that might have frustrated some, I don't think not with Joe Chappelle, but I think with some of the other, one of the other directors was I had to wear these prosthetic teeth and they weren't comfortable. So I didn't put them on until we actually filmed. But then I couldn't really like talk like Freddie with just my regular teeth. So I didn't like when we rehearsed, like just to rehearse the scene just for the camera and stuff, I just didn't perform. Like I didn't try to be Freddie. I just sort of read the lines uh in my normal voice. But like Taryn would be going out, do everyone, all
Oh,
the other actors would be doing. I would just like, sorry, I can't go there right now. I'm gonna save it till we're shooting.
yeah, I was just gonna say, I think even if the teeth weren't the issue here, like I think it's valid when you're doing such an emotional piece to not blow it all when you're just quote unquote just in rehearsal.
Yeah, yeah.
It's hard. I mean, listen, I'm not an actor, but I can't imagine what you have to do to get to that place for every take. So if you know I'm doing this a bunch of times anyway, save it. Like save the good stuff for when it's going to matter the most. Because in rehearsal, what do you need blocking? You need lighting, you need camera angles. You don't need the intensity of the emotion.
But just for the camera's folks' sake, they do need timing and
Yeah.
there's some elements like that, which I just didn't. I remember one other scene before where I wasn't able to, I didn't feel like I could perform the scene like it would be just in rehearsal. And the camera was doing like a move in and they needed to time it out. And I was like, we're just gonna have to figure it out. It's like I'm not gonna be able to, you know, I'm not, I just didn't have it in me to do go full out for just the practice rehearsal. So, but this one I went full out. I think I had the week off before we filmed that last episode. Um, and so I went like as hard as I could, try to drop as much weight as I could in that last week. Um, and I'd stayed up for like almost 2 nights just for fun. Like not like because like there's nothing I could do that could get to that state of mind or like he's in such an extreme state of mind. It's like there's nothing I could do to myself that would put me in that place. But this is one thing I could try to do to like recreate what level of exhaustion or you can't sleep at night or the level of stress. And so I literally just I think for like a week just lived off coconut water like, and try to drop weight and I didn't sleep for the first like the last 2 nights before I was binge watching Baby Reindeer like on
Oh,
Netflix.
you know what though? Yeah, to get in the right mindset, that
That's
might.
I binge watched that just to help me stay awake.
Oh, okay.
Right? Um, and just hoped that I wasn't too exhausted to do the show up and do the work and not forget my lines and just went for it. And it was fun. I never for once ever thought I was Freddy. Like there's no way
Right.
in the world you could possibly fathom what this character's gone through, but I let my imagination go and was pleasantly surprised, and I think surprised others. And I think that's part of what's hopefully resonating with folks is like
Yeah.
tapping into your imagination. If we bring it back to to Bill Bixby, to David Banner, wanting to tap into that state of finding some, you know, deep reservoir within you to tap into. And that's, I felt like I pushed myself to that point to try to find that for that scene. That was like the hardest I'd ever gone for one single scene in my career, I think, in terms of pushing myself to the limits.
I think it's obvious he's pretty tragic, but I'm wondering if you find him more tragic for almost I don't know if it's a justification, but almost like the beliefs. Like as you said, that scene with Adina Porter where he's seeing her as his foster mother and he's saying we're going to go to heaven. Like there's a reasoning behind the arson that is not just revenge. And I'm wondering if you think there's a tragedy and like this kid didn't get the help that he needed when he was younger. And so now he's mixed everything all up in his mind, and that is why he has become the person he's become, as opposed to like a lot of time. I'll say this, I'll speak for myself completely here, but like I don't find Dave tragic in that way. I find Dave like just a sociopathic narcissist. And so when I see their endings and like they're both caught,
Mm.
I don't feel bad that
Yeah,
Dave got caught. I
yeah.
feel bad that Freddie maybe not got caught, but I do feel bad that he ended up where he ended up.
Well, I think what happens with Freddie's character, which we've all been in, everyone, is we've all been, especially in the entertainment business,
Mhm.
underestimated, uh, overlooked, um, undervalued. And imagine if that was something that happened to you uh, right from birth, you know? Now, there's the whole nature versus nurture. There's some people who, in those circumstances, will be like a piece of coal that's hardened and turns into a diamond, and all that pressure and hardship, whatever, brings them out and brings out the best in them. Like they know how to overcome these obstacles and survive and thrive, and that becomes like this incredible uh, fuel to make them who they are. And without that hardships, they might not have achieved what they did. There's the other extreme where someone is not able to weather the storms and is totally crushed and beaten down, disillusioned, bewildered, crushed basically. And the only way they know how to survive is through some sort of self-destructive
Yeah.
reaction to things. And everyone has been in a situation where, whether it's a heartbreak or, you know, something you've lost, where you try to make it better and you make it worse.
Yeah.
So I think that's part of what is sort of universal about Freddie's story, in contrast to, the narcissistic sociopath, which very few possibly can relate to.
I would hope, but probably more than I'm saying, but yes.
Yes. Um, yeah, we don't have to go down that path because there's plenty of people we can identify, I'm sure. But I think what speaks to people is everyone's been in a job interview where they wanted it so bad and they were gravely underqualified or did not have a clue that they had no shot at the job in the first place.
Yeah.
Uh, and just what that does over time, like day after day, year after year, and what that would turn you into. It's like that's what we see in Freddie,
Mhm.
who didn't have the tools. Yeah.
Right. I okay, I'm gonna ask you a question that brings both of these shows together. I'm not fishing for spoilers. I want to say that up front. Freddie doesn't survive the season of smoke. So I want to talk to you about, first of all, how you feel about that, about his actual ending. And then I want to look at Dexter in the sense of like kind of what you, I don't even know how to ask this without you going into spoilers, but like I guess kind of what you wanted for his ending, like if you wanted him to survive it or if you wanted him to be on Dexter's table because that's such an iconic moment. So let's start with Freddie and
Yeah.
talk a little bit about how you felt about that ending, the fact that like he was caught and then in the end, like he this is may come out sounding a little rough and I apologize if it does, but like he made the choice. He said, I'm not doing this. I'm gonna end my own life. I don't want to go through prison and this, the legal trial and all of that, which may have been one of the only real choices he had in life because he was so, I don't want to get on a soapbox about the system and how it shoves these kids along and doesn't give them anything that they need. But like to me, that felt like he was finally able to do something for himself. But it's also very tragic. So you don't need to hear me talk about it. How did you feel about his ending?
Well, it's interesting you bring that ending up because there was a big battle about Freddie's ending.
Okay. Battle, you mean like between people on set feeling
Powers that, not the people on set, by the powers that be.
Hmm.
There was one camp that did not want to see, I mean, because it's a loaded image, a black man hanging from a noose.
Yeah.
Complicated image, a complicated history. Um, there was a camp that did not want that to be the last image of Freddie, or did not want that to appear on screen at all. And there was another camp that fought very hard for that. That was all above my pay grade and
Sure.
my decision making process. Um, and I think the same thing is happening with Dexter, where people are starting to carve out, like there's different camps. Like people are like, I've been getting messages from people like, if anything happens to Blessing, I'm gonna riot.
Yeah.
Like I'm gonna cancel my subscription or I'm gonna whatever. And there's other people who are like, he's the killer, he's the whatever. So there's like all these different like camps that are forming that are beyond my like pay grade or wishes. But what's exciting is that there's this vested interest.
Mhm.
So if you can create a character where there's a vested interest and there people are torn as to what path they want to see this character go, I mean, I couldn't ask for more because that raises all sorts of possibilities.
Well,
Yeah.
and that's the other part of this is that like it is also unfair for me to ask because Smoke was a limited series, but with Dexter, if he survives the season, you could go on if the season come if another season comes. So nobody necessarily wants to say, "Oh, I want to end up on his table now" because it's iconic and of course I'd want to be one of his victims, but then I would screw myself out of future employment. So I could also understand that like there's different layers to that than I
I,
initially
I
implied.
think I think anyone who's in the Dexter universe and any actor who's coming on the show uh, knows that anything can happen at any time, and you just enjoy and be grateful for the episode that you're in, and know that next week you might not be there. You know, I think I mean, that's why people tune in.
Mhm.
People are tuning in to see who's going down this episode. Who's going to be the surprise person that gets killed? I mean, it's morbid, but that's part of what drives people to tune in each week is like knowing someone's going down
Yeah.
or hoping someone's going down or being terrified that someone's going down and wanting to see how it unfolds.
Yeah, and I think it's also so interesting that this many years in and this many iterations in of the show that they are able to do that because it always used to be really focusing on that one big bad and he's hunting. Yeah, other people are dying along the way, but Dexter is hunting this one main person throughout the season. And that's not really what's happening here. So there is a lot more of the mystery to it than there used to be, especially when you then add in the Harrison part of the story. And now that we've gotten some backstory from Blessing, finally, like, oh, there's a little extra mystery there of like maybe my cynicism of thinking he was hiding something at the beginning is coming true, but maybe there's also something else coming that is maybe not dark, but just different and unexpected. So I'm excited to see how it plays out.
I'll take you back to another show I was on, which was The Shy.
Oh yeah, love The Shy. I used to write about that when I was in my previous job that I will not mention here.
Well, on The Shy, the first episode, my character kills a kid.
Mhm.
And when that happened, the first episode, I was like, every script, I was like, is this my last one? Is this, because there's no way you kill a kid
I
and there's no,
mean,
there's nothing, there's no consequence. And I gotta say, when Ronnie met his fate, that was like the biggest moment of like my career. Like everyone was like, "Oh my God," freaking out that that he got popped. And
that's the thing because if
you're gonna
anybody
go, if you're
hasn't
gonna
seen
go,
the
you might as
show,
well go with a bang. Like,
yes, but what I was going to say is if anybody hasn't seen that show, like saying, well, he kills a kid, it's so much more nuanced than that. Like it was, I will
that's
say that what I didn't think it was obvious that Ronnie would then have to die in some sort of retaliation just from that first episode, just based on what happened. Knowing that this could play out for a long time, there was a lot of really interesting story that followed before you met your end. Let's put it that way.
yeah. But I think that, you know, I think that's like if you're gonna go out, you want to go out with a bang. And literally that was I didn't, sometimes as actors, you're like, I want to do something forever. Uh,
Hmm.
sometimes the greatest gift is literally like having a great ending, you know? And I think that's part of why Dexter is back because they tried to have an ending. People weren't satisfied. And they're like,
Nice.
yeah, what the hell was that? So then they came back. And there's like this appetite. So I think the big question mark is like not just for my character, for Blessing, but what would be a satisfactory ending for
Yeah.
this show that's been running for 2 decades plus? What would yeah, what would satisfy audiences? What would be the most shocking and entertaining and exciting and you know, yeah.
Yeah, I think also the answer has changed over time because that first ending, people were so mad because it just kind of left him hanging in this like really depressing environment, which I honestly defended at the time because I was like, to me, that's worse than death for him. That's worse than prison for him. He's out there in the world without being able to do the thing he needs to do without the people that he cares about. Um, and then to kill him, but not kill him in New Blood, right? Like you've killed him, but then you brought him back in Resurrection. Well, you can't fake out that death more than once, I don't think.
Yeah.
So, what is your even option at
Yeah.
that point, right? Like, characters live in the world beyond the show, and we
Yeah.
just don't get to follow them, or they die at the end of the show. You did both.
Yeah.
You didn't like either. So, like, I do not envy those writers' jobs as trying to find any ending at this point, let alone a satisfying one.
Well, hopefully we won't have to worry about that for a while. Hopefully. And yeah, hopefully uh, as many of us can live to see another day. But yeah, ultimately you want to have something that's sort of cathartic. Death is a cathartic experience, like a that transcends. Uh, and that's you can only ask for something a great ending, either for my character or for the show's run or for any other characters in the show who meet their fate to have like a celebration of their life. No.
Yeah. Very true. I will say that scene or sequence of scenes where your character's mom, you guys were celebrating her life, and like we walked into it with Dexter and Harrison thinking it was going to be so dour and a funeral, the way that like honestly white people do funerals, where like everyone's crying and like everyone's thinking about themselves and their loss and not celebrating the life that this person had and the legacy they leave behind. That I was like, that's a really beautiful scene to include in a show that is so morbid and is so much about death, but usually the other side of death.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Just valuing the life that we've had and lived, and finding moments to celebrate that is like that was so great about that scene. Yeah, and it's was a nice reminder to Dexter himself,
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
humanize him in a way.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on. It was such a pleasure to chat with you. Before you go, I want to let you know where you can find the things that we discussed today so you can experience them for yourself. As I mentioned earlier in the podcast, the 1970s Incredible Hulk series is unfortunately not available to stream, but there are specific seasons that can be purchased on Amazon and Apple TV. Apple TV is also where you can find Smoke. It's an Apple TV Plus exclusive or original, if you would. And then Dexter Resurrection. New episodes are still dropping on Paramount Plus on Fridays and also airing on Showtime on Sundays. So thank you again for joining me for another episode of Made Possible by Pop Culture, the podcast. And I hope you'll come back for the next one, in which we're still going to be talking to a TV actor, but we're flipping over to the comedy genre.